Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is my 2024 Tesla Model 3, my 2024 BMW M2, and in this video we're going to talk about my old Audi RS3 actually, and talk about, because I've had this car for about 5 months now. I traded or sold my RS3 for my Model 3 or my Tesla Model 3 long range, all-wheel drive, not a performance. And basically I just want to give you guys a follow-up video. Do I regret trading in my RS3 on the Tesla? Do I miss my RS3? Give you some updated impressions, some updated thoughts now that time has gone by. So let's go ahead and hop in the Tesla because we're going to work today. So we're going to take the daily driver. So let's hop in the Tesla and go over the reasoning. All right guys, we are cruising in the Tesla right now. So let's talk about my RS3 and the whole fiasco that went around buying that car. Flashback to December of 2022. So my car situation in December 2022, I had just sold my 2020 Mustang GT because I was preparing to buy a house. And the only car that I had in my stable was a 2022 Mark 8 GTI DSG S base model. So it's just a $30,000 GTI basically. So in December of 2022, I was looking for a car that could kind of do everything, right? So a car that would be similar speed to my Mustang GT, even though now that I've raced them, the RS3 gets destroyed by a stock Mustang GT. Car that was similar speed to my Mustang GT, something that's different, all-wheel drive, something that's more luxurious, German, also something that kind of had some characteristics of my GTI because it's on the same platform, right? They're both on the RS3 is on a Golf platform, just so you guys know. So I was like, okay, the RS3 is the perfect car. It can be my one car solution, and I can drive it every day and everything. So I thought the RS3 was like the perfect choice for me. And it was within kind of like the price range I was willing to go up to at the time, which was, maybe up to 70,000, but 66. I optioned the RS3 somewhat kind of lightly just so that it doesn't get terribly expensive. So the only thing I got on it was just the technology package, and the color I think was the extra cost option, but that's literally it. So my RS3 was like 66.8 MSRP, something like that, or 66,000 MSRP. And I was like, okay, that's somewhat reasonable. I'll have some time to save up for it, trade in the GTI once it comes in. It can be my one car solution. Everything will be great, right? So that's what my thought process was like in December of 2022. Flash forward to May of 2023. That's the month that I closed on my house. And one day before closing, I was already scheduled to get the keys and everything. One day before closing, my salesman that sold me my Mark 8 GTI called me and said, hey, we have a Golf R if you're interested. And they were asking, because this was during like markup era, by the way. So they were asking like 7,500 over MSRP for a 20th anniversary Golf R. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna, pay that, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, what are you willing to pay? And I was like, I'm willing to pay MSRP, and then I looked up what my GTI was worth, and I'm realistic, I'm not unrealistic. Some people are completely unrealistic with what their car is worth. But I looked up to see what my GTI would be worth, trade into a dealer, not private sale, excellent condition nonsense. And I said, if I can get somewhere around this for my trade-in and MSRP for the Golf R, then I'll buy it, right? And he did a few little texts back and forth and stuff with, his manager and all that. And he ended up coming to numbers that I was okay with. So I ended up buying the Golf R one day before I moved into my house. And so now plans change, right? So now I went from having a Mark 8 GTI to now having a, $50,000, almost $48,000 Mark 8 Golf R. I was still kind of like, should I cancel the Audi? I was like, well, I haven't heard anything from my salesman, so it's probably still going to be a super long time before I even get that car anyway. So I was like, I'll just leave the order out there. So didn't think anything of it. Didn't hear from my salesman, nothing. I didn't even know if the order was still even placed. I just didn't really even care at that point. I did put a $2,000 deposit down, but it was refundable, so I wasn't really like tripping about it. And then fast forward to October of 2023, I was just sitting at work bored one day, and when I'm bored at work, I like to go on YouTube. I like to look up cars for sale, just browse around. I was like, okay, let me see if there's an RS3 that's like in stock, or like see if I can find an RS3 in stock somewhere. So I started looking at RS3s in the right color and everything. I found a couple that were like in California, one that was in like Arizona, and I was like, I inquired on them, and they did not want to do MSRP on those RS3s. And this is in October of 23, so yeah, it's still kind of markup era, but kind of getting out of it. So I was like, no, I'm not paying over for RS3. I have one coming anyway, and plus I like the Golf R anyway. So I was like, I won't really worry about that. And literally like an hour later, after looking at those RS3s, I was like, what about the M2? I was like, the M2 is pretty cool. It has an S58 engine. It has a ZF 8-speed automatic, which is my favorite automatic transmission. And I was like, maybe an M2 would be a good choice. So then I started doing some research on M2s, literally an hour's worth of research on M2s, even though I already kind of knew a little bit about them already. I did a little bit of research on M2s, and I was like, wow, this car is actually like perfect for me. It's not a one car solution car, but I can keep my Golf R since I love it, and then buy the M2. So then I started calling around dealers on M2s, and I ended up coming to a deal on one that was in California for MSRP. So I went to California and bought the M2. So now I had the Golf R and the M2 in October of 2023. So right after I bought the M2, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna completely cancel my RS3 order now. So I went to Audi Henderson or texted them, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm no longer interested in the RS3. Can I get my deposit refunded? Got it refunded, threw away my paperwork on the build and everything, just didn't even think about it anymore, didn't care, didn't even cross my mind at all on that car. Because I love the M2, I love driving the Golf R. I was like, this is the perfect two-car setup. And then the salesman gave me a random phone call, and I think it was what, May of 2024, and this is so long after the fact. He was like, hey, the RS3 that you ordered is here, just figured I'd ask to see if you're still interested in it. He said, we'll still offer it to you at MSRP if you want to take it. And I was like, no, it doesn't really make sense, because I got like my Golf R trade appraised, and I was just like, yeah, no, it doesn't really make sense. It's not worth the upgrade. And I was like, I'll just come down and look at it. So I went down and looked at it. I was like, okay, you know, it looks like an RS3. I was in the middle of a shift at work. I took time out of my shift to go look at the car. So I was already kind of on a time crunch. I was feeling a little pressured, because they were like, okay, well, let us know if you want it, because if not, we're going to put it out on our lot. And that's a dealership that does a bunch of add-ons and stuff on their cars. So I was like, okay, well, if I want the car, I got to do it now, because if I don't, they're going to put a bunch of add-ons and nonsense on it that I don't want to either pay for, and I also don't want on the car to begin with. So I was like, oh, this is my only opportunity to get a car that I actually ordered from the factory, that's not been molested and all this stuff. And I was like, So I was like really thinking about it. I was like, no, it doesn't really make sense. Then I went there and I was like, okay, well, maybe if I got this for the trade-in, maybe I'll do it. And they ended up giving me that for the trade-in. And I was like, I was like, okay, I guess I'll buy it. And I bought it without even like really wanting to buy it. So that's why I made that dumb decision to buy the RS3. I know some people might be thinking like, oh, well, why didn't you just test drive it, or why didn't you just do this? I did test drive the car, and it drove normal. I mean, I didn't floor it on the test drive. It's a car that had like 6 miles on it. I didn't floor it on the test drive to realize that the power was underwhelming in the heat, and you know, I couldn't really fully get a feel for it when I went around the block and spent literally 5 to 10 minutes test driving it. So you know, that whole argument about, oh, you should have just test drove it and then you would have found out everything about the RS3 that's flawed about it. No, I don't know that on a 5 to 10 minute test drive. So that's how I ended up with that car, and that's why I sold it immediately, because it was not what I wanted. It was expensive. So let me go over some things that, before we get into the negatives, right? Because I know some people love the RS3, and you know, they bought one and spent their hard-earned money on one, and they don't want to hear someone bash it. But I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on what I liked about the car, and then what I didn't like about the car. So for what I liked about the car, I love the way it sounded. I think the RS3 sounded really good. No, it doesn't sound as good as a V10, but it has a subtle hint of a V10 sound. So I think it sounded really good. The public opinion on that car was great. Everyone that, you know, I mean, most people aren't going to say your car is a piece of shit in front of your face, but Every single person that I talk to that's a car enthusiast or whatever, they just love the RS3. Oh, the RS3 is so great. Oh yeah, are you gonna make it 1,000 horsepower? 1,000 horsepower, IROS. You know, that's literally what everyone says on RS3s. Oh, IROS 1,000 horsepower, IROS 1,000 horsepower. That's not even practical. That's not realistic. No one's doing that. You know, and if you are, I'm glad you have that much money to spend to make your, you know, Golf chassis RS3 1,000 horsepower. But anyway, everyone loved it, right? And they were basing their opinions based off of RS3s that they've seen on YouTube, RS3s that they've heard about that, you know, are supercar killers and, you know, just a menace on the streets and this and that. And yeah, if you spend enough money, you can make anything fast. Another thing I really liked about it is that on the stock tune, you can put E30 in it and it does adjust for it and make the car a lot faster. So that's kind of cool, being able to just go to the gas station, put in a few gallons of E85 and the car is much faster, even on the stock mapping. And then I love the new car smell in that car. The new car smell was great. It had Napa leather seats, smelled really good inside, so I did like that part about it. But let's talk about the downsides. So the RS3, after owning it and living with it, not doing a 5-minute test drive, I learned about all the things that I don't like about it. For one, I don't really like the reverse stagger. It looks kind of funny. I've seen the car drive when I'm behind it, and it looks like it's like crab walking with the way that it drives. So the reverse stagger, not really a huge fan of that. The low end torque and the power delivery, not a fan of that either. It has no low end torque below 3,000 RPM, and then it just shoves a bunch of power to you. You know, once you hit 3K RPM, the turbo spools up and just gives you way too much power. And then in the normal drive mode, the throttle response was super lazy. You put it in sport mode and then it's too aggressive. There was no happy medium to where you can just drive that car daily and it just feels nice. It's just either too slow or too aggressive and too fast and revs too high and stuff like that. So I didn't like that part about it. That was like my least favorite thing about that car. Another thing is that it's so susceptible to conditions. Gas, heat. You let it be 100 degrees outside, that car literally, I did a draggy test when it was 100 degrees outside. It trapped 109. That's how slow that car gets in the heat. And that car, according to Car and Driver, is supposed to trap 117. But realistically, I haven't seen an RS3 trap 117 stock. They always trap like 114, maybe 115, which is decent, but still, like, yeah, it's so susceptible to conditions that it just makes the car annoying with how inconsistent the performance is. Another thing too is the interior is super cramped. So I'm 6'6". I understand that's a me problem, but the interior was super cramped, which made it not a good daily for me, because like the door panel would come way out here. It felt really tight inside. The sunroof was like brushing up against my head. It just was not a comfortable experience inside. And again, on a 5-minute test drive, you know, I can't really get a good feel with how the car is going to really fit me when I'm daily driving it, getting in and out, wearing coats, you know, my hair is not cut. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that changes when you actually live with the car instead of just test driving it. One more thing, the DSG gearing was really annoying in that car. It was super long gears, and it seemed like it didn't really utilize the power band right. Once you got moving like past 100 miles an hour, it was great. It was nice and fast, and the gearing was good, but at low speeds, the gearing's so long and the car just feels kind of sluggish, honestly. And it kind of had clunks and stuff in it. The turning radius was awful as well with the reverse stagger. Turning radius was horrible in that car. It's a tiny car, but with those super wide tires in the front, it didn't turn sharp at all. And then the price, it was just too expensive for what you get, in my opinion. So that was that's my whole like thought process, reasoning behind why I got the RS3 to begin with, why I got rid of it, the real reasoning behind everything, just so you guys you know, have an idea. I love my Tesla. It's a great daily driver. It does daily driver things way better than the RS3. So very happy with my decision to get rid of that car. However, you guys are looking for an RS3, I recommend checking it out for yourself and seeing what you think of the car, because you might really like it. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.